presentation, which I feel is very special because we haven't done this before. It's a team presentation, and it is on operational excellence. And the team was responsible for winning the 2010 Operational Excellence Award this last year. Also, they won in another category as leader, which was the Richard E. Hall Award. Their leader was able to pick that up with one of our other CEOs. And then they also were a finalist in the area of workforce development. So it really gives me great pleasure, and I'd like you all to welcome Kenny Heifner and his team from SMS Technologies to the stage now.
Before I start, I'd like to introduce my team members with me. Actually, our team's bigger than the team that we brought with us today. I brought a couple of key players. I'll show you later in the slide presentation all the different multi-functions that we have on our customer-focused teams. But with me today is John Crankshaw. John is our test engineering manager. He also is the owner and continual improvement person for our manufacturing execution system that we use to track our products through our systems. And he is also our operational excellence champion. And next to him is Ramel Kramer. And Ramel is our production manager, and he is the value stream manager for this project that we submitted that was the basis for our Operational Excellence Award. I'm going to give this microphone to them so they can chime in. I'll do most of the talking, but we do want to field a lot of questions. So as we speak, write down any questions that you have as I go through the presentation. I will say this, as I go through the slides, because there's about 28 or 29 slides, as I go through the slides, if there's something that I say or something you see on a slide that you have a question about, stop me right there, because I'm not sure how easy it's going to be for us to go back to the slides. And but we'll hold our discussions to the end if that's okay with everybody. Does that sound good? Okay. As Mickey said, we were the 2010 Supplier Excellence Alliance Award winner for Operational Excellence. We were a finalist for Workforce Development. The year before, in 2009, we were the Supply Chain Innovation winner. And this case study that I'm doing actually is two cases. I'm going to show you a glimpse of the case that we used for the Supply Chain Innovation winner in 2009. And the reason why I'm doing that is because they are clearly two different cases. One case is a case of starting from scratch, working with the supplier for the first time, going through the development process, new product startup. The case that I'm going to show you that we're really going to focus on for the main part of our presentation is one where we took over something that was a legacy product. And very difficult situation, had some issues, design issues with it, and was able to work with the customer and the supply base in order to make that an effective program. So that's what we're going to be showing you today. SMS Technologies is based in San Diego. We have about 100 employees in San Diego. We're part of CalComp USA that also has Total Electronics, which has a facility in Logansport, Indiana, and also a facility in Reynosa, Mexico. All three of these organizations are low-volume, high-mix EMS companies. We provide electronic manufacturing services, and we're expanding our services a lot like some of the companies that were represented on our panel yesterday. We offer design layout, rapid prototyping. We do design for manufacturability, design for assembly, design for test. We have core competencies in RF technology and supply chain management. We aren't just in the AS9100 military aerospace sector. We also do automotive, the TS16949 that you see there. We do industrial and commercial applications and medical applications. That's where you get the 1345. But we just have one quality management system that we combined all those standards under. So we operate out of one quality management system. That same system has the C system in it as well, and I'll show you a slide on that a little bit later. When I first started showing this, we didn't have as many aerospace and military customers. Actually, we have a couple of more now that you don't see on the bottom there. So we are growing in that space. I just wish somebody would give us some real business to sink our teeth into. First, let's talk about the U.S. Air Force project that we did with Signal Engineering. When we first bid on this project, from the time we actually bid and actually quoted what we thought the labor would be, our productivity was up by the end of the project by 83%. Our on-time delivery to C was 100% throughout the whole project. Even though there were some issues that we worked through with the customer and didn't have perfect quality between us and our customer, we were 100% zero defects to the U.S. Air Force for 25,000 units that we delivered to them. We did the whole contract. During that space, and I attribute this mainly to the C leadership and culture, our customer satisfaction improved by 33%. Our inventory turns went from 7 to 10. The Air Force colonel that was responsible for the program said that it was the best engineering and manufacturing team that he'd ever witnessed, and complimented us on our great execution. Also in 2009, when money was very difficult to get, we were actually able to pay off all of our debt and had record profits during that year. I would attribute the basis for building a quality system and then augmenting it with the things of C to this customer-focused process approach. It really comes out of, this is an adoption out of the ISO TS system. The customer-oriented approach sets it up so that we have 9 customer-focused processes, and even though this slide is difficult to see, it starts here with 1 o'clock with partnership development. It's really important that you partner with somebody that you can really effectively serve. So if you look at this, the input is the customer needs to know if we're a good fit for them, and the output of that process is they understand and they start to engage with us. And if that happens, then the input into the next stage is we start doing the development process with prototype. And the output then is, if we're going to do long-term business, then we do 3P. And that's really what I'm going to show you in the first few slides, is how we do advanced product quality planning to build quality in, and how we use 3P, production preparation process, in order to launch lean, launch quickly for the customer, launch lean, and launch at high levels of quality. But you can see there are a total of 9 customer-oriented processes, and they all focus, this whole thing focuses our entire quality system on meeting the customer's requirements. C is a huge part of this. I can't emphasize, and you heard me say before when I congratulate Mario for winning the Leadership and Culture Award last year, because leadership and culture is really the magic to this. You can't, I've been in situations that started out with General Motors several years ago. You really can't sustain operational excellence if you don't have a culture of discipline. Discipline for lean and discipline for near zero defects, or what we call Six Sigma. And what C does is really set it up so that we have that as a core of our business. And when you have a workforce that understands what you're trying to do, where you're taking this, they understand what lean is, then the operational excellence side comes naturally. It comes quickly and it comes naturally. The thing that's interesting, and Marzell made a mention of this earlier today, is that 9100C is adopting this same customer-oriented process approach. And it's really built into what we do in the Supplier Excellence Alliance. Not only do we cover every aspect of supporting the business, but we cover the soft side of the business that's so critical to getting everybody on board and aligned with our objectives. So let me talk a little bit about the production preparation process. In our new roadmap, the 2011 roadmap, we've reduced it down to 15 processes. But 2 of those processes are new processes that really are critical for us to embrace. One of them is the development process that Marzell talked to you about this morning. And that's really equivalent to advanced product quality planning. The second one is the 3P, what we call our 3P process, production preparation process, and that's the new product introduction process that you see in the roadmap. Advanced product quality planning does not mean that it's an advanced course or what we're doing is advanced. It means that we're doing it in advance. And the whole idea is to build quality in before you launch. And so we follow a process to do that that starts with the customer's key product characteristics. Of course, we're interested in making sure that we meet the customer's product characteristics. We're very focused on that. And if we miss that boat, we don't get to play. But it's even more important, as Marzell said earlier this morning, that we build that kind of stability into the process. So what we do with this is starting with the key product characteristics from our customer is to start by using a dialogue around a process flow diagram. So for every customer's process that we start from scratch, we do a flow diagram. And what we're doing is we're matching the customer's key characteristic where in the process that that actually occurs. And we're making sure that we build the quality in at that level. And the way we do that is with a process failure mode effects analysis. And if you go APQP or online, you can see this is a tool that's been around for a long time. But the discipline around this really helps because you're carrying, okay, this is where we can have a failure. So in the category of class on the process failure mode effects analysis, whoops, something happened there, it disappeared. We were making sure that we understand what could go wrong and we're taking corrective action in advance. In other words, we're mistake proofing the process before we even launch the process. And then that leads to a control plan. Now, if we know what we have to put in place to prevent failures, we have an engineering document. We start this even in the prototype phase. And this kind of lends itself to the production preparation process. We don't build our prototypes in a prototype lab. We set our prototype program up like we're trying to run it on the production line. That way we can find out what fixtures we need, what kinds of things are going to be necessary to augment the program from a lean standpoint. So the control plan has a prototype control plan. We do an iteration of that, PDCA, to launch. We may do 1 or 2 launches before we actually do what we call a PPAP, production part approval process, in our first article. And then lessons learned get put back into a production control plan. These all become living documents that we use as kind of as a center point or a focal point for our teams to make sure that we fully understand how we are controlling our customers' processes. And then, from these living engineering documents that we continue to update even through the life cycle of the process, we develop our control plan, our work instructions. In a lot of cases, and this is the way it was when we started here, we would just put the line out there and then we would make work instructions based on how we developed our line. Not anymore. We develop our engineering documents and then our work instructions based on carrying the key characteristics of these stars all the way through the process. We want to make sure that operator knows what's key to the customer's product in the process and how they affect it. And the last thing we do is we qualify, and this is part of the C program, we qualify our operators on each of the stations to make sure that they know exactly what they're supposed to do in order to meet the customer's criteria and keep the process standardized and stabilized. Okay, that's how we build quality in. Not inspect it in and not build the product right, not just build the product right the first time, but build the process right the first time and build quality in. The next thing is to launch lean, and I already started talking to you a little bit about how we launch lean. And that's that we're already gathering our times when we're doing prototypes. And then we're honing that information as we get more so that we can actually get times, balance the processes. And what you see here is a balance chart. Typically, if this was the tact line, we wouldn't want to go over it. But when we're just starting out, we're really testing it. We just want to get close to it. But this allows us to launch lean instead of waiting until we've launched something and going back and having to do a Kaizen event to get the improvement. And that's what 3P is really all about. The last thing about the Air Force project is, and this is where the real power of the Supplier Excellence Alliance, when you're talking about stage 2 and supply chain integration, you can get as lean as you want to independently within your own organization. But unless the whole supply chain is leaned out, unless we take the waste out of the whole supply chain and connect it so that we've got a continuous flow with pull through the supply chain, then you're sub-optimizing the particular components. So what we did in this case is, actually it kind of backfired on us. We showed this presentation that was similar to what I just went through to the United States Air Force when they came in. And they said, okay, that's great. How many, what's your output? What can you produce per week? And we said, well, we're matching our capacity to the demand. And you need 500 a week, so that's what we did. We build a cell that would do 500 a week. And they said, that's great. That's exactly what we want. We're actually 4 months behind on this, and we need to get caught up. After they left, our customer goes, oh my God, why did you tell them that you could do 500 a week? We can't do 500 a week. What they were saying, what they were doing was they were not actually doing any much value add. I think they put the antenna on or something like that. They were mostly doing testing, but there was a lot of that needed to be done. But what we did was we just said, hey, that's okay. It may not be as bad as you think. Let's spend some time and maybe we can do a point Kaizen or a flow Kaizen with you and help you with that. So the next day, Steve and I, the program manager, sit down with them. We worked with them with our team for about a day to do a point Kaizen. And they've never, after that day, they were able to keep up. What we were doing in 2 shifts, they were able to do in 1 shift. But with that, we started then producing, or trying to produce, and we found out that what had been built up in our supplier, aluminum die casting, and Mike was here yesterday, but I don't think he's here today, they weren't able to keep up. And so Mike and I had already been talking about how to make his process, his casting process, lean, and how he'd have to move process and dedicate resources. And he was already doing that, but he said, I can't go any faster than 275. That's the most I can produce in a week. Otherwise, I'm going to have to add resources that I can't afford. And I said, well, let's sit down. We had his value stream map. We found out that the process that was the bottleneck was the masking and demasking process. So what we did was we did a Kaizen event on that, a flow event on that. The people in his organization were all Spanish speaking, so that there had to be a translator, but our team worked together with their team. The next week they went up to 500. And then when we went on up to 600 and some a week so that we could meet the needs that make up the needs for the U.S. Air Force, all I had to do is call Mike up and say, Mike, do you need some more help with that? We got to go up to 660. He said, no, Ken, if you're telling me that I got a couple of weeks for that, we'll be ready to rock and roll. And 2 weeks later, we were at 660 units. And when we did that, after we did that, that's when we saw even more productivity. We launched lean, but we were able to do Kaizens, point Kaizens in between. So when we reconfigured the cell to do 650 a week, we were actually able to reduce the number of operators, to reallocate those operators to 12 and produce even more. So that really is the results of what we did in 2009 and the way we involved our supply chain in the project. And now I'd like to go to the next process, which is the NSA implementation process. This one yielded even more, but we started in the hole. From what we originally, when we went in to do an analysis to see where we actually were with this when it started coming up to speed, we were really in the hole. But we made several productivity improvements, up to 93% productivity improvements over the life of the contract. We went from 93% to almost 100% on-time delivery. Our defect performance, again, we had some issues that we were dealing with internally, but we worked with the customer and the supplier to work through those issues. And we only shipped one defective unit to NSA over the life of the contract. The customer nominated us for the Operational Excellence Award that we won last year. And I'd already mentioned that in the same time our inventory turns had increased. They said that they had tried several people and couldn't find anybody that could partner with them to get the job done. But they said we were the right strategic partner. And we completed their IDIQ early after lagging by 1,200 units in 2010. Okay, so what was the trouble in the beginning? Well, as I mentioned before, we acquired the NSA business in 2007 from another supplier. The volume was 260 sets, 13 PCBAs that went into their unit per month. 260 sets of 13 PCBAs, printed circuit board assemblies. Many of the key components at this point in the process were obsolete. The customer wanted to work with us on a consigned basis. So we were doing consigned material with the customer, and the customer wasn't very good at getting the consigned parts to us in time. And of course, that can be an impediment, and it was an impediment to our process flow. We had a low incoming yield from a key selected source. The flex circuit provider at that time was really wreaking havoc. When you were getting components in from a supplier and they are substandard quality, it's very difficult to make your quality a whole lot better than what you're getting. But to top it all off, the material handling costs were left out of our quote. So the bottom line was SMS was, when we did this analysis on this, had the time to do it and did this analysis on it, we found out that we were losing 175% of our quote and margin on this. So we were actually paying our customer to do this business when we started. Okay, so we start with the value stream map. We use value stream mapping here. Lots of visuals, lots of tools. These become the conversation pieces that our team is able to use to actually show us where we need to go and where we need to work. And in the beginning, the value stream map, you can see by looking at it that it was all push. There was lots of inventory. Lots of go look and see what the inventory is. We used to go out and count. We'd have to go out and count every day because we didn't know what was out there, and the customer would be asking us about that. So the lead time was about 8 days, but the value added time per PCBA was about 127 minutes. I have a little trouble with the clicker here. We used a customer-focused team, and this is one of the cultures that we have that comes along with the culture is focusing on the customer. We have a multifunctional team that we focus on each customer. So each customer has a program manager, a manufacturing quality engineer, somebody who handles both manufacturing quality and process, a test engineer, a value stream manager, that was Ramel for this particular project, production planner, procurement specialist, and cell leads. And these are the ones that work on these documents that you see. These are the ones that would do the value stream mapping processes. They're the ones that actually own the process and continue to work the process. So the turnaround started. Our customer agreed to let us manage. We herald that we're supply chain management. We know how to get the components. We know how to get them so that they flow into our processes. They let us do that. SMS qualified a second source to provide the flex circuits, and eventually that source became the sole source because of all the improvements that were made in the process. The quality improved. Even for us, it was an improvement of 98.44% once we got that problem fixed working together with that supplier. Our customer-focused team, Ramel, and with the support of John and others within the organization, developed a mixed model cell. So we had one cell that we developed around the wave structure that did all 13 units. So we built every PCBA every week. And so we were, instead of shipping to them whatever we had based on our components, we were shipping sets to them on a weekly basis. And that really revolutionized the entire process. So here's the way the cell looked. You can see that we built this cell because it was utilizing this monument, the wave solder machine, more than anything else. We actually built the cell right around it. In the beginning, you saw where we were doing conformal coating on the outside. We moved the conformal coating inside, and that allowed us to take something like 7 days out of the lead time. So we had a SMT Kanban that we set up here, and we would pull from this, and this was our pacemaker. And that was the way the process flowed through our organization. So the new current state map then showed one heck of an improvement. You see that we went from use and push to these FIFO lanes. You see the FIFO lanes that we've created in here, and that took a lot of the waste out. As a matter of fact, our new lead time went from 8 days to 8 hours. And we even decreased the value-added time by 20 minutes in changing this process. So if you go down through how we were able to actually make improvements, you can see that we decreased the lead time by 87.5% from 64 hours to 8 hours. We decreased inventory. Click, 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 click. From 1,308 units to 160 units. We decreased the floor space. I can't get it to click. There it goes. Okay, give me a few of them. Floor space went down by 65%. We're also looking at how far the product traveled. We want to reduce the amount of travel time or conveyance for the product. It went down by almost 70%. Effectiveness in PCBAs per person per shift went up by almost 91%. Quality went down from 17,709 ppm to 926. That's that 94.8% improvement in quality. And the last one is our margin. We actually started making money. We went from a negative to a positive by 83.3%. Okay, so the next thing then was, okay, future state, right? We did current state, we did improvement, we did flow Kaizen, we come up with a new current state map, we develop a new future state map, and projecting even more improvement. Lead time now going to less than 4 hours, and value-added time down to 95 minutes. If we do some equipment purchases, we need some washers and oven, inline washer and oven. We need to put our conformal coating process in line instead of having to go out to a room in order to achieve this. The problem is if we did this, how was that really going to help our customer? Because they weren't able to keep up with us. And we had already been talking to them about what we did with SCI and working with them on doing a value stream mapping within their organization. At this point, when we said, look, they'd seen what we did, they'd done away with the source inspection at our location, they finally said, look, we want you to come in and help us. So that's what we did. We took John and Ramel, myself, and a couple the team members, and we went up to the customers. And this is a very busy map, but this is what their assembly process looked like. Again, you see that there's a lot of push. It was all push. There's lots of employees involved. They had the go-see thing going on as well. This is the value stream map for it. Lead time was 21.7 days, and value-added time for building the box build was 121 minutes. A lot of our drawings, I'm showing you pretty drawings. We do a lot of paper and pencil stuff when we go in to do a value stream mapping process and take A3s with us. This was one that John did, and he was really going to do a spaghetti diagram so he could kind of see how the product was flowing. But the customer wasn't using a particular flow. They were batch processing, and they would just take whatever space was available to do the next operation. So what John ended up doing is actually showing how the operators were moving. And there was an awful lot of wasted motion. They were using 1,500 square feet of space to do the process. So after we did the flow Kaizen, we went back and we said, we think we can really make these kinds of improvements. And so we said, we think we can, with going with this, we can reduce your lead time to 3.2 days and your value added time to 121 minutes. And we also said we think we can do all this in about half the floor space. So you can see where there's the half of John's drawing, and we actually are laying that out so where you could see how the product would flow through their processes. Unfortunately, we weren't able to achieve those when we actually did it. When we did the flow Kaizen, we did make improvements, significant improvements, but what you can see that what we projected is not what we got in any case. But it was significant to the point where they were actually satisfied with it. The initial measure on lead time was 21.7 days. It did go down to 4.6 or 79% improvement on lead time. Inventory went down by 67%. Floor space went down to 890 as opposed to 850. And their effectiveness, the number of units produced times person per shift, went up by 122%. So they were thrilled with it. So what are some of the things that were pitfalls with it? Probably, I have to, it's not surprising to me that this really goes back to leadership and culture. The power of disciplined lean culture should not be underestimated. Trying to go into an organization that had not done the work that we had done with C in leadership and culture development, it just makes for very difficult to be able to get people to understand what you're trying to do and what the value is behind it. Even workforce development, when you go and talk to one of our operators out on the floor, because of the training they've had, the C training that they've had, they understand what we're trying to accomplish. We don't spend a lot of time trying to motivate them. It's not that they're working against, it's not that the group was working against us, that the people that were actually working as operators on the floor, but they just didn't really know what the next step was or why we were doing it. So there's a lot of confusion about it. We also, it was riddled with inspection. Every process had to be inspected. So we were having to move people around so that we wouldn't have the same person inspecting that actually did the work, of course. And that created some issues for us as far as process flow. Once we got this done, the bad thing about it is they shut us down for a whole month because they had a month's worth of inventory that they had to work off. So we just went down for a month after we did this lean workshop because they were so much leaner, they just didn't need the product. The assembly process lacked enough burning capacity. They had the ESS chamber was downstairs from where they were building the product, and it was set up to where it could only do so much. So it was the bottleneck or constraint that they really weren't, and once they got this improvement, they really weren't willing to make the investment that they needed to make in order to take it to the next level. Because we were really looking at the opportunity to actually produce twice as much as what they were producing so we could get caught up on what NSA was looking for. So the potential future improvements that we identified was combine the inspection steps so that we're not doing so much inspection, rely on the process to make sure that we're doing the product right, look where we can do that as far as what would be acceptable to the ultimate customer. Combined functional test operations, they had 3 functional test operators. After our analysis told us that they could use 1 functional test operator to do all 3 tests if they did it in a flow. They were packing, they'd put all the product for 2 months in a room, and then they'd pull their samples out of that. And once they got the approval for the samples, then they would take over the whole packing part of the business to get those packed out and shipped out the door. So we were saying, go ahead and pack everything out. Whatever we sample, we'll just take back out of the boxes. We said instead of shipping to NSA every 2 months like they were doing, the reason why they wouldn't do it is because of the cost of actually doing the test on it. But if we could produce twice as much, we could get caught up and still be able to afford to handle the test. We also said that they didn't have, not being lean, they didn't have a lot of visual controls. We helped them put some visual controls in place, but there were still a lot of visual controls lacking. The other thing we talked about is developing returnable shipping cartons and actually making milk runs between SMS and our customer's facility. Okay, and you can see where we're looking at different shifts, and there we talked about a box that actually hold all 13 assemblies in it, so that becomes a Kanban that allows us to know exactly what we need to ship to fulfill the orders as they use up the orders. We really didn't get this implemented. Okay, so what are the lessons learned? Well, first of all, I've already mentioned the significance of lean culture and workforce development and the ease of implementation. Not only is it easier to implement, it's easier to sustain because the people get it. The culture's there. The disciplines are there. The power of the C roadmap is another big deal because people can see this is how we are going to reach that. And a lot of the people that we've worked for, like Mike, for instance, that was here yesterday, realized that we were following this roadmap and that his company could do the same thing. That even though we worked together to help them on operational excellence, we couldn't help them build the culture that they needed and to build the workforce development programs that they needed, but C could. The next one is really one that, and I'm going to let Ramel talk to this one, is removing the blinders and actually learning to see waste and learning to see flow. Can you talk to us a little bit about what you learned there, Ramel?
Removing blinders to me was not only implementing lean to our organization, but also providing the service to our customer and helping them implement lean and the benefits that it had to the entire supply chain, but SMS and our suppliers.
Thank you, Ramel. And then, when John talked about it, he said, and BJ said something like this yesterday in the SAC meeting, that it takes faith. What did you mean by that, John?
Well, usually when we go through these these processes in our company, sometimes when we're doing the very first ones, it's really hard to see that as we go through it, the outcome is really going to be worth all the energy you put into it. And every time I've been involved in one of these things, the outcome has always been well worth the hard work that you have to put in to make that come true. And the other thing I wanted to say, it's not on here, but I wanted to say that a lot of things has happened in our company through this process, and I've been with the company 26 years, and we've been on our lean journey officially maybe 4 years. And what's really happened is that there had to be a champion of the whole process, and that's what Kenny had brought to our organization. And through that process, as we became a customer-focused team, and we had to really look and see what the customer needed, we had to really understand what it meant to be customer-focused. And there's a lot of arguments about, the customer just asked us to do this and this and this, and we just need to do this, this, and this. But really, to be customer-focused, you have to understand what the customer really needs, even though they're not saying it. And so once we get through some of those problems, we really got a lot of traction. And so that's just a paradigm shift, and I think Marzell talked about it a little bit. You have to go through some of these paradigm shifts with all the people that are in your organization so you can truly get a good momentum and make a lot of improvements. So,
thank you, John. Also, one of the things that and I said it once before, but I want to emphasize it again, it's one thing to do lean and reduce costs within your organization, free up cash. It all works. It does work. But for it to really work well, for us to really be able to supply our customer, Boeing, with what they need in order for their customers to get what they want, there has to be that seamless work across all the supply chain integration will yield way more than you could imagine. One of the things that Dan said yesterday was, but we want 20% every year, and I'm just freaking out when I hear that, because I'm going, daggone, our margins aren't even 20%. So basically he's telling me he wants me to go on the hole every year and figure out how to get out. But we are doing those kinds of things, but where we really see that payback is when we start to team up with other members of the supply chain. because there's so many inefficiencies between organizations and redundancies. And by taking that out and taking the inventory out across the whole supply chain, the value that it brings to everybody in the supply chain is more than all of us need. So that's the opportunity for us. Operational excellence is multiplied many times over when it's applied to the entire value stream. And then again, our last slide, if I can get it to come up here, is again, looking at a way to go clear from the raw material for our flex circuit provider, in this case, throughout SMS technologies and our tier 1 customer, to be able to serve NSA when they need that product and get it quality product when they need it and on time and at the right cost. And thank you very much. I'd like to open it for questions.
Ken, do you have a copy of this slideshow that on your program that might be available for us to take back to our people?
Yes, Supplier Excellence Alliance always provides these whenever a customer. We've always submitted these so that you can use them.
Kenny, let me just say for everyone's benefit, after every conference, we do post all presentations on the events tab for under the SEA website. So events, conferences, and you'll see a link that says conference presentations, and you can get videos and presentations from not only this conference but prior conferences as well.
And also, usually I have a slide that has a thank you with my name and information on it, but I'm on the C website as a SAC member, so my email, if you have questions after you've looked over this or you're doing something within your organization and you want to send me an email, please feel free to do it. Mario.
Kenny, can you share a little more about your value stream manager and why you created that position as part of the customer team? And is that just the front end or through the whole life cycle process of getting parts?
It's a good question. Our value stream manager for SecureCom is sitting right here. And he does a heck of a job for it. He mainly, he's intricate about understanding the whole value stream from the time it starts in our process to the time it goes out the door. But Ramel did go with us when we went to our customer to actually work the value stream from that end. And also our engineers went with us to do that. Our engineers typically, here's where you see we have these multifunctional engineers, manufacturing, quality engineers, and also process. They're the ones that know what we need from our suppliers. So you'll see them actually going back upstream in the process to help the suppliers develop in supplier development. So we try to, these are key people within the organization that we have to duplicate so that we can make sure that we can cover all the, because basically what we're doing is we can't afford, how many of you do actions items or have corrective actions that you just get swallowed up by the system? In other words, there's so many continual improvement things you can do. There's so many things you can measure. There's so many corrective actions you can take. So many customer concerns or customer complaints that you can only be reactive and not proactive. You know, you can only choose the kinds of things you really need. That's why working on theory of constraints is so important. Where do we work? Well, we didn't work on all the supply chain. We worked on ADC because that's where the main constraint was. We didn't work on all the suppliers for the NSA project. We worked with the flex circuit supplier because that's where it was a quality constraint in that one. And the one before, it was a flow constraint. So you can't do everything all the time and do anything very well. So I wouldn't limit Ramel. He has the ability to see clear across the value stream. But he has the onus. You talk about the guy in the overhauls. That's him. He's the guy in the Gemba every day, making sure that he's got eyes for flow. He knows in a heartbeat when something's hung up because he knows how that stuff's supposed to flow through the system. When he sees it hold up or when he sees forks or loops, that's a position where he's going to go and try try to do a point Kaizen or a flow Kaizen. But don't let me, I love to talk. I'm a teacher by nature. So, Ramel, do you have anything to add?
No, you basically explained it. So my job basically is to take a look at the whole value stream and look at constraints. Like right now, we have I have a project right now where I'm looking at SMT setup. So I'm trying to also get to SMED, single minute exchange of die, and so we have that going on. So because I can see that's a constraint in our current processes.
Thank you.
It's funny he talks about that, and this goes back to the theory of constraints. That we had a lot of capacity in SMT. So we weren't, even though it was one of the things that C wanted us to do, single minute exchange of dies, it wasn't a priority for us because we had enough capacity. But now we're getting to the point where we don't have that capacity, or that capacity is being taken. So we're looking for ways to do quick changeover or single minute exchange of dies in order to take advantage of that. Other questions? Mario?
What is the structure of your Kaizen activity in terms of trainers, facilitators, Kaizen leaders, Kaizen members? Who chooses, who participates in a Kaizen, and how much?
Very special because we haven't done this before. It's a team presentation on excellence. And the team was responsible in 2010 award this year. The award was the award was to that one of our students. And then the also were refined I'd like you all to welcome Heifner and his team from SMS Technology.
I'd like to introduce team members with me. The team. I'll you slide presentation from multi-customer focus. But with me today, he also is and control system, track systems, and he is also operational champion. And him is Ramel Trainer. He is the value for this project that was the basis. Give they and I'll do most of the talk. So as we speak, any questions you have, I will say this: there's about the slides. If there's something that I say or something you slide, stop there. I'm not sure how easy it's going to be for you to this, and but we'll questions to everybody. Okay, as we were the supplier award winner for our operation, we were for workforce development. The year before, we were in the case that actually has two. I'm going to of the case that an innovation winner in 2008. The reason we're doing this is a case of our first time through the development process product startup. The case will show you that what really going for the part of our presentation, where we something that legacy very difficult situation, had some issues was in the supply base to make that an program. That's what SMS technology is based 150 ago USA has total electronics and support India in Mexico. All three organizations, mix EMS companies, factory services, and services like out rapid typing, manufacturing, design, have core competency, technology. We aren't just in the military aerospace sector, also do automotive, 950 commercial applications, and that's get the 30. But we system all the operate out the main system. That same system, C system, and I'll show you a photo at a little. When shown many aerospace military customers, a couple learned that you see at the bottom, and that's which into. Let's talk about the U.S. Air Force that we did with signal engineering. On this product was time delivery to the project. Worst issues we work between we were 0 to there for 25,000. Did the whole space mainly to the sea culture faction 33% 10. The colonel that's responsible for the program is the best manufacturing team and complimented us in our graduation. When money was very to get I would basis for building quality service and all focused process. Now, this is an addition out of the so this slide start with one development. You partner with somebody effectively serve. Is the customer needs